Cathey Vackar Meyer's experience as a former FBI agent and public educator gives her a unique view of the issues of street gangs, juvenile violence, and the chaos their effects bring to businesses, schools, and communities. Her 5-question outline will teach you to gauge your comfort level in a variety of situations and help you establish your personal definition of what is a safe place. Now we join Cathey Vackar Meyer in finding our safe place.
My FBI experience left me with many life lessons. And one of the ones that stayed with me the longest is that we often laugh at the most obvious, but sometimes we forget what that's all about. My most memorable surveillance activity occurred in Houston, Texas, where I was an FBI agent, and we were tracking bad guy car thieves who were going after little old ladies parking their Cadillacs at the local malls. This surveillance went on for about 18 months. And what was happening was the bad guys would wait for the little old ladies to show up, park their Cadillacs. While the little old ladies were in the mall, they would steal the Cadillacs, eventually strip them down, transport these parts across state lines and internationally down into Mexico. So eventually, involved in this stakeout was the Houston Police Department, the Harris County Sheriff's Department, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, and the ATF. So for a period of time, we took turns rotating, doing surveillance, hoping to catch these bad guys. And my luck struck one Tuesday morning when I was on surveillance, and my part of the assignment was to be on the interior of the mall checking out the sales. And our bad guys showed up, as did, luckily for us, a little old lady and her Cadillac. She parked her Cadillac, went into the mall. Our guys started to make their move. We got the signals to get into place. That meant that our job was about to begin. And just as quickly, we got the signal to freeze. Something had gone wrong in the operation. What had gone wrong was the little old lady decided to return to her car. Now, as quickly as they could, they gave each of us new assignments, and mine was to get to the little old lady to make sure that she was safe. I, of course, was at the opposite end of the mall, took off running as fast as I could to get out there to that parking lot. In the meantime, you should know that the little old ladies of Houston decided that law enforcement was not reacting fast enough to this problem we were having in the city. And long before we had concealed handgun laws in Texas, they were arming their handbags. So as she came out of the mall, returning to her car, and saw the activity going on, she pulled her weapon, an angry citizen. She's stomping toward her car. I'm running across the mall. I've got her almost in sight. The accomplice to our car thief sees what's going on. He's out of the car and apprehended. Now, our car thief is hot-wiring the car. He's underneath the steering wheel, and he's going at it, and he's not going to let anything interrupt his concentration. She's got her weapon out. She's bound and determined to make a point. She's got the barrel of the gun in his neck before he knows anything that's going on. He looks up and sees her, knocks her to the ground, takes off across the parking lot. She's down on the ground, gets up, gets into the car. The whole time I'm running, I'm out of breath, thinking, I don't know about doing CPR when you can't breathe. I get to her. She's sitting in the Cadillac, just shaking. I come up to her asking the question, ma'am, are you all right? And she looked up at me and she said, oh my God, this isn't my Cadillac. What that experience unexpectedly taught me is that sometimes we have to take responsibility for events and actions that aren't necessarily our fault. When I left the FBI to join my family back in San Antonio, I never dreamed that one day I would be known as the gang lady of Texas. And that's what I am. When I moved back to San Antonio after my experience in the FBI, I began noticing graffiti in my neighborhood. And I thought, you know, I don't live in a neighborhood that has graffiti, much less the gangs that are affiliated with them. And through a series of involved conversations with school districts, I began doing research on street gangs in the state of Texas. I was quite afraid when I first started this because the term gangs makes us very fearful. My mother, of course, was so relieved that I'd left a dangerous job in the FBI and had returned to San Antonio. Now I was working with gangs. She's just not quite sure what it is that keeps me going. But what I learned in my time working with street gangs was that through a series of 5 simple questions, you can determine the level of involvement of violence, juvenile violence, and gang violence within your own community and neighborhood. How does that affect us as individuals, active members of our community, and business owners? Well, the threat of gangs has spread far beyond the streets for us today. We now have gang members in all our public and private schools. We have them in our universities and colleges. And as employers, we are now hiring gang members to work in our business. If you're astute at tattoos, you will notice now in college and professional sports as well that the image and the message from gangs is cutting across many barriers and lines. It's not just an event of poor kids in low socioeconomic neighborhoods. It is now everywhere that you and I are. What I learned when I first started visiting with these kids is that with my 5-question gang quiz, you can easily determine where you need to be and how to establish your safe place. Question number 1, who can name a gang? We can all say Crips and Bloods. We know about them because they were the first gangs to evolve off the West Coast. They've been with us since 1972, in case you're curious. But gangs have now spread across America. When you start thinking about, I can name Crips and Bloods, who else can you name? Now you need to start paying attention to the graffiti in your neighborhood. Now you need to start paying attention when you hear kids talking about what's going on at school. Because all of a sudden, most of us will be able to list or name at least 6 different kinds of gangs within our own community just by driving to work, just by looking around in the workplace and determining maybe a gang member, maybe not, just by asking questions about tattoos. Which brings us to quiz question number 2. Why is it that you know about gangs? Most commonly you know about gangs because of the media. You hear about drive-bys on television. If you're like me, you just know that that next drive-by is going to occur at your house. You hear about the violence that's going on in our communities. You're hearing all of this on the media, but now you're also hearing it through the entertainment industry, through the music industry, through the movies, and through television. We've quit paying attention to it because it's almost become commonplace. But if you make a point to understand what's being fed to you, you'd be amazed at how gang literate you are. Quiz question number 3. Who is not afraid of gangs? That would be me. I'm truly not afraid that gangs are going to come attack me. And likewise, you should be in that position as well. In visiting with gang members over the last 8 years, they have assured me that if you fall into one of these 4 categories, the likelihood of you being involved in gang retaliation or gang violence is very slim. First of all, if you're not in a gang, gang members have no interest in you. Secondly, if you don't dress or look like gang members most likely have no interest in what you're doing. Thirdly, if no one in your family is involved in gang activity, gang members most likely will have nothing to do with you. But number 4, which will start affecting us more and more. If you have no friends or associates involved in gang activity, gang members most likely will not affect your life. However, if you're a business owner, if you are hiring young people who are involved in gang activity, how do you know you're not hiring their rival gang members? We have to start looking and addressing these questions because they are becoming more and more common. The business of street gangs is exactly that, a business. And gang members now range in age from 7 to 37. So they're cutting across many barriers that previously we did not consider. I personally am not afraid of gang members because I don't fall into any of those categories. But if you have a son or daughter dating a gang member, if you have a child or a relative that attends an event where a gang member shows up, then you very well could be a victim or associated with gang violence. Quiz question number 4. Who is afraid of gangs? I'm there. I truly am afraid of the violence that gang members can do. There's nothing that says when I'm out on the town some night and a gang rivalry incident breaks out and I happen to be an innocent victim in a location that I won't be struck by a bullet or affected by the